I was a funny kid. When I was younger, I was kind of brought up with my mum and my sister. I didn't really have a male influence, and I was quite a near-hearted young man. You know, I used to get upset. I even got bullied by quite a bit, not physical, but just kind of mental bullying. And when I was about 14, I kind of started getting into the karate, and, you know, I wanted to kind of toughen myself up a little bit. But I just had this idea to join the army, and I'm just kind of one of these people, once I get an idea in my head, that is it. I'm just going to go for it. And 14 years old, I decided, right, bollocks to this. I'm joining the military, you know what I mean? My mum's a little bit obviously concerned about it, but she's not the kind of person who would say no. And that was it. I didn't take school very seriously from on there. I was bunking all the while. I didn't really care. My mind was made up. And at 16 years old, I decided that I was old enough to go and fill the thing in there. I think at school age, I could have joined slightly earlier, but I didn't. And I ended up going to Lowestoft Recruiting Service, done all the paperwork. And I wasn't really academically very great. I was dyslexic, so I wasn't very good at these tests. And I ended up having a choice of either joining the tankies or the infantry. And I thought, I want to be in the infantry. So as a very young lad at 16, I entered at a place called JIB Shorncliffe, Junior Infantry Battalion Shorncliffe. That's down at the coast on Folkestone. And that's where it all kind of began, you know. I mean, I can remember leaving home. I think my mum had a photograph of me. I was very tearful, very nervous, but also excited, thinking, what the bloody hell have I just got myself into? Anyway, I got the long train journey down. Everything was fine until we got on the London train. And I started meeting up with other lads that are going down there. And everyone was quite jovial, but the closer and closer we got to this location, everyone got really, really quiet. And then we turned up at, I think it was Folkestone South or whatever the state, Folkestone West or whatever. And there was a NCO stand there. I can remember Corporal Pearce, Free Royal Anglian. He was all dressed up as number twos, and God, did everyone go quiet. We were absolutely shitting it by that point. Anyway, so we got on the coaches, good old-fashioned military coaches, and trundled down to St John's Moor Barracks in Folkestone or Shorncliffe. And how can I say, to be perfectly honest, the first 6 weeks I found an absolute nightmare. Drill was, oh my word, what is this? I had no coordination and I really didn't enjoy it much. And, you know, I had lots of thoughts of chucking in the towel. But I'm a resilient bugger. I'm a stubborn bugger. And no matter how much I hated it, I stuck it out. And, yeah, you know, and it got to a point once my mindset started changing, I started becoming more of a soldier, I kind of really enjoyed it. And we had to go and do a second part of a training, which was down in Royston, Bassingbourn Barracks, where they filmed Full Metal Jacket. When we were there, they still had the assault course, but we weren't allowed to go on it. We were absolutely busting to go on this bloody assault course. They wouldn't let us on it for health and safety because that was woodworm. And it felt really disappointing. But anyway, there weren't really that long after they'd done the film Full Metal Jacket, and within 2 weeks of Bassingbourn Barracks, I managed to break my foot. I got stress fractures right across my feet, like the David Beckham injury. Excuse me. And I ended up getting back squadded for about 6 weeks, and I was in something called Kohima platoon. And, you know, had to go and work all the way through there, loads of spans, all those horrible, brutal exercises they wanted, because they wanted to keep you fit so you could fit back into training when I kind of recovered. Anyway, long story short is I passed out and I wanted to join the Royal Anglian Regiment. why the Royal Anglian Regiment? Well, look, it's kind of thing is that I did want a bit of power. I hated the bloody heights. I cannot stand heights. Do I want a bit of bootneck? No, I don't like bloody water. So I thought, right, okay, we'll go Royal Anglian Regiment Infantry, local battalion. Funnily enough, the battalion's called the Vikings because of its Nordic roots. Basically, the 1st Battalion's catchment area is Norfolk, Suffolk, Cambridgeshire, Lincolnshire. And, we were based in Gibraltar. And that was my first post in Gibraltar. And that was not long after the Gibraltar Free, where the members of the Provisional IRA thought that was a jolly good idea to plant a rather large bomb in a tourist area of Gibraltar. They were going to try and take out the convent and the band, and they got owned. And that was my first introduction, and I can remember doing certain operations where getting ITV, kind of, we're jumping out the back of the vehicles and clamping down the island. So that was my first introduction to the battalion. Now, when you're in Gibraltar, it's like a bit of a holiday location, and we'd get up really early in the morning and we'd do area cleaning. Now, the routine was this. You would get up in the morning, you'd do area cleaning, you'd do a little bit of training, and you'd bin it about 12 o'clock in the afternoon because it'd get really hot. And then either the guys would go and get the heads down or go down the swimming pool or down the beach. Now then, being young soldiers, we were horrible. And we would just go out on the Raz every night. So we'd go out at about 9, 10 o'clock at night, get absolutely smashed off your face, crawl back into barracks about 4 o'clock in the morning, put a head on the pillow. Next thing, some horrible individual will be waking us up, and then they make us run up the Rock of Gibraltar. So the famous rock run and the next steps. So we used to have to do this. They'd get us up, we'd go run up the hill, we'd all be ill, we'd all be being thrown up over the edge and God knows what. And on the way back, because it's a really steep hill, your trainers are on fire because you used to have these really sharp bends. Oh my God, you used to sprint down these things and you kind of end up flying off the edge of the bloody rock. But anyway, you got down to the bottom, you were fine, you was right as rain, you'd have your breakfast, whatever, then you'd be like training, and then you'd just repeat the loop. And, that went on for quite a while. And then that tour came to an end. We used to go and just do silly things like just used to bugger off to Morocco for the day or just skip over to Spain because it's just right on the border. But it's quite a boring posting, really. And then we got kind of moved back to Colchester, Hyderabad Barracks, and that's where we kind of got our first active tour coming along, which was South Armagh. This was in 1989, and we started training for our first active service tour in Northern Ireland. And one of the first speeches we got about South Armagh was we were told that not all of us would be coming back. So anyway, I was in C Company, 11 Platoon, and that would have been our kind of like our operations company, and we'd done all our training in Lidenhithe and Thetford, and sort of like this, it's called your NI training. Yeah, I can't remember the exact terms, it's such a long time ago, but anyway, August the 25th was my 19th birthday, and I've got a picture of me sitting in the car park at Hyderabad Barracks, and that very day, my 19th birthday, we were deployed to South Armagh in Northern Ireland. I can't remember where we flew out from, but we turned up in Aldergrove Airport, and one of the first things, because we were green troops and nervous, and that is that we're at Aldergrove Airport. There used to be this little old lady that used to meet all the soldiers at Aldergrove Airport, and she used to go and hand out Bibles. So you'd walk out and then this little lady, she'd say a prayer for, and she'd give you a Bible. You thought, shit, this shit's getting serious. And from that point on, we were deployed to Besbrook Mill. And what happened, we'd get picked up at Old Grove in a big Chinook. We'd fly over, get dropped off outside the gates, and we'd walk up. And one of the very first things I ever saw, and it really stuck in my mind for a very long time, and there was a sanger at the top of the base, and on it was a message written by the unit we'd swapped with, and it said, "Be slack and you'll surely kiss your ass goodbye." So anyway, we turned up, we're an operations company. That just basically meant that they just whiz you anywhere in your area of operations. And I can remember my very first patrol, and that was up at a place called the Cashel Locks near Silverbridge. And I had got these really old pair of combat trousers on, and basically what happens when you go around the island, they have these stone walls, and they had these barbed wire fences, but because of the civilians didn't like us very much, they would put like 4 rows of barbed wire on, so they were like up against your chest. And so basically we got into an art form of what we called fence hopping, and it's a bit of an art, because when you're carrying like about £100 of kit on you and you're going over these fences and that, it takes a little bit of practice. But because this was my first patrol, I wasn't really that practiced anyway. So probably the very first fence I got to, I stood on, and the bloody thing collapsed, and it ripped my combat trousers, my ankle, all the way up to my groin. Thought, great, good start. So anyway, we're patrolling a little bit further. So every time we came to a fence, poor old Mac, catch his trousers a little bit more. So by the time I'd ended up finished on this bloody patrol, which was like about a good 6-7 hours, it looked like I was wearing a bloody grass skirt. No word of a lie, my arse hanging out, you know what I mean? I kept going past the civilians and flashing with my arse out. And even they took it in good humour, but first patrol, bloody nightmare. I just practically had nothing left of my trousers on this barbed wire fence. So that's my first call. We was tired, really tired. We'd just been trolling all day, and I'd absolutely shattered. But that was my first introduction into what the terrain is. They're kind of shifting us around, and spent a bit of time down Newry. And I think my first kind of close shave was we walked past a car bomb, and for some reason it wasn't triggered. They'd wedged in a few pounds of Semtex in this car bomb, and for some reason they didn't detonate it. They'd obviously bottled it. You had spooked them. There's obviously a patrol that was in their escape route or something, but for some reason they never detonated that. And that's kind of like your first kind of little bit of a wake-up call. I think that generally there were little things happening here and there, a few mortar bombings, a few mortar attacks and that, but I think the first time we had to kind of deal with death was the first time we had to deal with death was I think it was October the 25th, and we were in the base and we heard the gunfire from about 10 miles away. And what had happened is that police were called out to a location, a place called Balik, and they were ambushed. And basically what they'd done is had a pickup truck, and they had like a Russian-made 12.7 Dushka on the back of it, and they ambushed this police vehicle. I mean, one of the lads, he managed to get out. He was very lucky, but the other guy wasn't. And we were called out on the cordon, and we had to cordon the area. And the fire brigade, they couldn't put the fire out, so the poor lad in there was left burning. And that because of all the exploding ammunition in the vehicle and that. So basically we just looked at his corpse burning in the vehicle, you know, he had the expression of terror on his face. You know, you could see all his white teeth and everything, and that poor lad. And that was one of the coldest mornings I could ever remember. Yeah, that was one of those beautiful, clear, frosty October mornings. So beautiful, so picturesque. But then again, you know, there's some poor lad who has just been killed. Constable Michael Marshall, 25 years old. Yeah, anyway, I'd done a couple of tours of Ireland, and I'd had enough. Basically, it was taking a little bit of a toll out on my family, weren't very fair on them, and I decided to leave. I didn't think it was going anywhere, because what was there to do in between Northern Ireland? There was just sitting in the barracks doing fuck all. You know what I mean? Fatigues, sergeant's mess duties and officer duties and guard duties. It was boring. I just had enough of this. So anyway, I wanted to educate myself. So I think that, you know, I've done enough time in the shit. You know what I mean? I want to get a cushy office job. You know, I want to be able to go home at night, go in a warm bed, have the weekend off, all this kind of thing that everyone takes for granted. Clean sheets, marvellous. You would never know how to appreciate things like clean bed, clean sheets, and be safe at night. You got to understand that, you know what I mean, how lucky you are to be able to go home to that. So anyway, I straight off the aircraft, Northern Ireland, done a month's guard duties, and then I decided I'd go to college. And that was a little bit of an eye-opener. I mean, I'd just come back from my second tour of Ireland, and I ended up in a classroom of 15 and 16-year-olds. And that didn't kind of go well. There was me kind of like just basically come back from a bloody war zone, and then I was in a classroom because I wasn't very tolerant. I really struggled with it, and I decided to do art and design. Absolutely no idea direction where it was going. All I knew is I knew I could paint and draw. No idea what you could done. But anyway, I had my eyes kind of open to this. I kind of got into graphic design, done the art college thing, graduated, got myself civilian jobs in working in office environments. But I really didn't fucking fit in. Honestly, I was like a cat in a bloody pigeon cage, and not surprised these poor buggers were terrified of me. So anyway, I had to go and find a release, so I got back into martial arts, and mainly karate, because in those days, you know, I mean, all there was either there was karate or judo. There's none of all these other fancy martial arts, all these new modern martial arts, nothing like that. It was either you done karate or judo. So I needed something. So I kind of fell back into karate, and I was training with a guy called Clive Betts. And, you know what I mean, I got pretty involved in it. When I get really involved in something, I get really kind of in there. And, you know, I worked hard. I trained hard. I needed that. I needed that kind of release. And I worked all the way up to sort of like about one below black belt. But what Clive introduced me to do was door work. He said to be a good martial artist, you know, you've got to kind of get into proper fights and all this kind of thing. So, all right, okay then. So, anyway, so my first door job was in probably one of the roughest fucking shitholes in Great Yarmouth. And the other thing was I was only about 24, 25, and I was a bit of a pretty boy. And this club that I worked in, it's called Badgers. It's on Haven Bridge in Great Yarmouth. That was basically populated by the Great Yarmouth or Norfolk and Suffolk Hells Angels. So that's a little bit of a jumper straight in the deep end there, Mac. So anyway, my first job was working in there, and it was quite sporty, and to get anyone out, you had to take them down 2 flights of stairs. So you know, when you're kind of wrestling some 30, 40-year-old power drinker who's refusing to go and their mates and that, you know, I mean, there were a few accidents. And when I used to work on the door in Yarmouth, there was none of all that SIA shit. I used to work with some proper fucking hard doormen, you know what I mean? The ones that you would think, I ain't having nothing to do with that, unless they were really particularly drunk or particularly psychotic. But and then they'd started introducing door badges. I can remember in Great Yarmouth I had the badge number 13, my lucky number. So I was badge number 13 in Great Yarmouth, and then I kind of ended up working in a pub called Peggotty's, and I used to be the ape that used to be at the back. Now, I used to do powerlifting, so I was quite a big boy. I was about 18 stone at that point, and, you know, I was sort of like ripping up something like about 250 squats and deadlifts. And I used to be the one at the back of the pool table, and I still get people in Yarmouth recognising me. So I know, yeah, I used to be the doorman at Peggotty's, because that's a well-known drinking hole at the time, and that. I'm from there, and you know, I'd done a lot of the pubs and clubs around in Yarmouth. Done that for quite a few years until I decided to move away and get a job in graphic design. Anyway, you know, I mean, I moved over to graphic design and tried that kind of work, and again, things weren't quite working out. I was married, I had some young kids, and the marriage wasn't really going very well, so I kind of just used to go karate just to get out of the house again. And, you know, again, I worked really hard, and I got all the way up to my Dan grade in karate. And again, started getting a little bit disillusioned with it, took a little bit of a break, marriage kind of split up, and I thought, right, I need to go get into martial arts again. And I found something called, at the time, it's a very little known martial art called Krav Maga. And I'm one of these people, I don't know, there's something about me, I like things that nobody's really ever heard of. And at the time, nobody had heard of Krav Maga. And for me to do a Krav Maga class, I used to have to travel from Great Yarmouth all the way to Colchester. And ironically, the place that done Krav Maga was literally about 100 metres from my last military posting at Hyderabad Barracks. That was right on the square up in the military quarter. Anyway, so I used to have to get to train. I used to travel all the way from Great Yarmouth to Colchester. Big walks. It used to take me about 2 or 3 hours to get there to train once a week. You just get them about 1 o'clock at night. You know, I really enjoy this. And there's a guy called Marius, and he was pretty good. You know what I mean? I thought at the time Krav Maga was pretty good. And I was doing this, and there was lots of army guys there, you know, in paras, because it was like they'd moved from Aldershot to Colchester, and, you know, you just kind of just get bored to listen to shit. I've been in the army, you're not impressing me. And anyway, it kind of like I ended up finding out something called Kapap for a friend, and there was a club actually in Norwich, and what I liked about it was it wasn't just dissing other martial arts, traditional martial arts. That kind of embrace, you know, in that, you know, they kind of didn't mind that. It was much more of a thinking man's kind of version of Krav Maga. It was kind of built on principles, so it's kind of like you could basically slot whatever you want into it. You could build it around your personality. And that really what got it, build it around your personality. You know, I mean, the thing is, you can kind of get stuck in these systems where you just become a carbon copy of somebody else, but not like that. And the leader is a guy called Avi Nardia, and he always said, like, a bit like Buddha, don't follow me, find your own way. And that kind of thing appealed to me. And I done my instructor course with a nice gentleman up in Bridlington called Sam Markey, really nice chap, great teacher. And that's how my Kapap journey started. And things kind of worked from there. I opened up my very first club, which was in Great Yarmouth, at Be Well Gym with Spencer and Paul Bryce, and they were really helpful. And to be perfectly honest, it was my first club. I made loads of mistakes, and it was a bit rough. Yeah, it was a bit rough. I probably got my fixed bayonet mode in, and surprisingly, not too many people fancied training it because it was a bit full on. And, I had a few idiots who were just, if I said that we're training on the moon tomorrow, we'd turn up. But generally, it was just a little bit too rough for most people. But I learned. I never really kind of watered it down. I just had to change a few things just to make it approachable. And just thinking target audience, which is basically the ordinary bloke or girl who just wants to learn how to look after themselves. They're not wanting to be an MMA fighter. They're not wanting to be a traditional martial artist. So you kind of have to kind of get into that target audience of what they're kind of looking for. But that's the kind of thing. I opened up a club in Norwich, which is obviously Viking Kapap, and so that's it. So basically, what is Kapap? That's the question, or the kind of question is, what's the difference between Kapap and Krav Maga? Well, originally, Kapap was going to be called Krav Maga, but I think it just folded into some kind of legal nonsense and whatever, so Avi decided to just call it Kapap. Basically, Kapap is civilianised model, and it's built around what is simple principles, which are relative position, 2 points of contact, balance displacement, push-pull, high-low. You've got 5 principles. And what basically from here is you can more or less just wrap anything around in it. We don't really focus too much on techniques. Techniques get your ass kicked. Variables and principles are much stronger. When you talk about violence, it's random. It's no good just painting everything in straight lines, thinking that people are going to do this, they're going to do this and that. As I watched a video, last night, somebody put a Breville sandwich maker in a bag and practically beat somebody to death in it. What we got to do? We got to do Breville sandwich bag self-defence lesson this week, folks. It don't work like that, does it? We're talking with raw, chaotic violence. So that's why I think principles work really well, not just straight line techniques. They don't really work for me. I worked on the doors. I went back onto the doors. I've been working on the doors for a few years in Norwich again, and it's completely different from when I used to work on the doors many years ago in Yarmouth, where the violence I thought was kind of more honest. And people would walk up and punch in your face. These days, they're dirty little bastards. They'll come and blindside you. And you were just dealing with the drunk, but now you're dealing with a cokehead, and they are just idiots, absolute idiots. I hate cokeheads. Completely different game. And again, this kind of door environment now, you've got different enemies. You've got the SIA, you've got the police, you've got the people who employ you, and obviously the venue of work. And then you've got these people who are putting cameras on you all the while. So, working on the doors now was completely different when I was walking on the doors a few years back, when we used to just work with just proper hard bastards. Now you kind of feel like you're more of a public service representative. But to be perfectly honest, the more knowledge I've got, the better fighter I became and all this kind of thing, the less violence, the less force I had. I kind of consider myself as a really nice doorman, a nice, patient, talkative, kind of calm people down. Very rare I would then have to put hands on people, and that. So it kind of changes. So yeah, there are good things about how it works now. It's a lot different, but compared to when I first worked on the doors and now, it's a completely different thing. But I just find that the Kapap is kind of like, there's no syllabus to it. So if you, for instance, you start teaching something about 4 or 5 years ago, you can look at it for what a load of shit, get rid of it. Yeah, and we'll develop something else. And we find things that really work. And basically, you just have like 2 toolboxes. You have a bin and a toolbox, right? That's rubbish, chuck it in the bin. I'll keep that, chuck that. And that's just basically how Kapap works. It's not really, it's very free, it's very open-minded. So you don't have to be stuck on some silly, pointless syllabuses. I mean, how many times you heard the instructor go and say, I don't know what we're teaching, this load of shit. But it's in the syllabus, I have to teach it. Nah, bollocks, bin. So one thing that kind of got me into the Kapap side, I was kind of like the military side of it. Obviously, me being an ex-army guy, and I know that we're training civilians and that, but I still have that inkling to things military. I think I left the army well before my time. I should have stayed in, but at the time, circumstances, being a young man, it was kind of like just bored the tits off me, to be perfectly honest. I'm quite a bright boy, and if I'm not getting fed things to keep me interested, then I can't be doing that. So anyway, what I noticed is that our chief instructor, bless him, Avi, had moved from America, and he had based himself in Serbia, and he was much more accessible. I mean, the first time I had to see him, he came to Bridlington, but then I had to go all the way over to Boston or New Hampshire in the States to actually train with him. But now he's much more accessible, and he was starting to promote something called GROM, and a little-known firearms instructor called Master Zherko. And I thought, we'll give that a go. And we kind of turned up. And one thing is, when you've been in the army, you kind of get this kind of arrogance in your head that, I've been in the British Army, I'm the bee's fucking knees. And we went down this range, and these Serbs, they were fantastic shots. I was really humbled. I felt like a complete and utter novice. I was safe, but, these guys were unbelievable. I thought, right, I want some of this. So I wanted to come back again, so I made arrangements to come back again. So I probably went down there about 2 or 3 times, and I asked the master if I could, is it okay if I prepare some more guys to come? Yeah, sure, Brett, no worries, no problem. I like that, no problem. And so now I just started preparing guys. I bought a load of VCRA compliant pistols because I wanted these guys to go over there and be safe. Later on, you found that airsoft is a much better, it's a much cheaper alternative, and you just need things like UCARA licenses. The last thing you want to do is get involved in anything to do with firearms, with real weapons and that in the UK. But from here, so that's basically, and the main kind of lead is that when you see a lot of people teaching firearms disarming, and that they make lots of critical errors. The first one is training with rubber guns. Yeah, you're teaching people to disarm weapons with absolutely zero knowledge of firearms, and that's a real dangerous thing. You've got different kind of schools thinking that, well, firearms disarming is a waste of time, and you've got others that think it is a time. But what I really want to just educate people, whether they think it's a waste of time or not, is that if you are going to go and fall into this, at least know what you're bloody doing. How many instructors you see that don't know the difference between a single and a double action, a revolver, the mechanism's different from a AK-47 to an army light, all these kind of things, but also be able to hit the damn target, you know what I mean? So there's kind of things, and if you watch kind of a lot, if you like your terrorism, you know what I mean, like let's talk about the Paris attacks. We got the Charlie Hebdo one, where he got holed up in the supermarket, and I believe that the gunman left an AK-47 outside, and the shop worker got hold of the AK-47, but he didn't know how to operate it, and that got him killed. And again, if you watch the Paris train attack, where the guy who gets on the train with the AK-47, some lad wrestles the weapon off him, but then has not have the awareness to realise that this guy's carrying a second weapon. He should have shot him, but would he have been able to operate this weapon? You know, it was lucky that some military guys on there had the balls and the wit to confront this gunman straight away before that had been absolute carnage. So anyway, you know, I teach people how to basically safe handle a weapon, clear any malfunction, shoot, have some knowledge, and we just do it for a bit of fun, really. You know what I mean? That we like doing competition, or we meet some very interesting people, and we just have a bloody good laugh. It's like the army, but without the bullshit. Well, firstly, I have to give mention to my chief instructor, Avi Nardia. He has supported me. He has trusted me, he's promoted me, and you know he's a clever guy. He's obviously took a lot of flack over the years, but you know what I mean. Avi Nardia, smart guy. You know what I mean, and he's got my back, and that's really important in this kind of world. You know what I mean. Yeah, and martial arts is a nasty business, and you know, you've got people who are just quite happy to cut your throat. So it's important to firstly pick the right team. But yeah, Avi Nardia, smart guy, lots of experience, and you know, he's somebody that I have utmost respect for. Other kind of guys that I kind of look at is that Russell Jarmisty. I like Russell. I've used to train him a few beats back. I kind of just listening kind of reminded me back to my door work days. I kind of forgot this, you know what I mean. I hadn't worked for about 10, 15 years, and I kind of forgot. So that kind of pulled me back into what I was trying to achieve. So we kind of got Russell Jarmisty, Master Zherko, Grom Serbia, lovely chap, lovely chap, very patient, fantastic shooter, absolutely marvellous, you know, I mean, I just wish I could be as good as him. Very good. I've bumped into a lad called Tommy Moore. I really like him. He's so articulate. His presentations are fantastic. I kind of had a big interest in British martial arts for a while. The thing is that what Avi Nardia always says is that basically, look, Kapap is not an Israeli system anymore. It's an international system. We've got people from South America, all over the place, Britain, and he said that it's not Israeli, it's international. So I kind of follow that kind of advice, is make Kapap my own. And you've got to look at what you call your endemics of what violence is like in Britain, what's violence in your local area. So you have to kind of fit that into your endemics of your area. So I'm kind of looking back to Bartitsu, Defendu, stuff that really works. And you think, you look at a lot of these modern systems and they're teaching a load of shit. It's people who have never really done anything, are getting these kind of theories and all this head and that, but you're kind of negating things that really work, you know what I mean? Like, okay, let's go and chuck a bit of BJJ, or chuck a bit of this, or chuck a bit of that, because it's sport. But you're kind of mixing sport up with a combative, or martial arts with a combative. It don't quite work. But Tommy Moore, nice guy, obviously Master Carl Butcher, my Arnis instructor. Good guy. And then I have to say, final mention to obviously Sam Markey, who actually got me through to my first level 1, and I trained with him for quite a few years up in Bridlington. But they're my kind of pillars to people who I've trained with. So if you want to get into Kapap, what advice would I give you? Kapap's not the easiest martial art to learn, or I don't even like calling it a martial art, a combative to learn, because it requires you having to have the ability to think. We don't work in straight lines. We chuck a lot of variables at you. It's one of these things you have to train, you have to work at. It's a bit like if you have like a painting by numbers and you draw up all the dots and this, and what you'll do is you'll follow everything in a conventional line. With Kapap, it's like you're just making much more connections than what you would do by just following straight lines. So it just takes that little bit longer to learn. So you've got to be open-minded. Kind of fits that more of that creative thinking kind of person. You got a lot of high-level martial artists that come and join me now and train with me, and it makes them think. Kapap makes you think. If you want to think, then you do Kapap.